How are you guys? I was standing in the back there and I just looked down, stupidly did the conversion. It's 4:45 in the morning for me. I'm going to be a bit big and energetic, but that's not for you, that's for me. So, today I'm going to talk a little bit about, in business these days, if you want to be successful in business, you want to position yourself as an expert and authority in business, you have to get up on stage, okay? Now, for some people, their stage is like Facebook Live. Some people, their stage is video on their Facebook, on their homepage. For some people, it might be one-on-one sales calls. For some people, it might be phone calls. But if you want to position yourself as an expert and stand above the people who you're competing against, you have to get up on stage in some way. Now, how does that make you feel? Great? All right. When I ask that, there's usually three reactions that people have when I say you've got to get up on stage. To find out where you guys are at, I'm going to show you three photos. So when I say you've got to get up on stage, some people are going to be feeling a bit like this. All right? Oh, geez, another bloody thing I've got to do. Oh, God, I've got me all social media. Some people are going to be feeling like this. Okay? And some people will go through both those emotions and will be sitting there feeling more like this. Okay, all right. But I was talking to David before coming over, and he said, could you just give them one tip, one thing they can take away and do tomorrow? So that's what I'm going to do for today. I'm going to give you just one tip that I promise you can start putting humour in your content, putting humour in your stage tomorrow, okay? When you leave here today, ask yourself, ask your friends, ask your family, ask your significant other, what are the top 5 funny stories you tell over and over and over, all right? And then shoehorn them into your content. Let me explain. One of the keynotes I give at home is about change management, like it's called Change Without Fear. And a story I tell, one of the themes that I talk about is this. Because we've always done it that way is no reason to keep doing anything. But when I talk about that, I don't just throw that out at people, I tell them a story first. This mate of mine, Sean Richards is in one of those families where everything they do, they do it because they've always done it that way, because it's tradition. Is anyone in a family like that? Anything worse, anyone married into a family like that? I feel your pain, my friends. Sean Richards, every Sunday afternoon in Sydney, they have a Richards family Sunday afternoon barbecue, every single week at 4 p.m. If you're in the family, you have to go, like blood or broken bones. A trip to hospital is the only reason you can get out of this family barbecue. And Sean married a girl called Sophie. And in Sophie's family, they have traditions too. In Sophie's family, the firstborn child in every generation is called Richard. Now, Sean Richards didn't want a kid called Richard Richards. But he was so keen to get his barbecue up, he gave in. And so little Richie Richards was born. Richie Richards, it's quite a cool name in primary school. Hey, I'm Richie Richards. Oh, look, there's Richie Richards. Hey, Richie Richards. Through junior school, no problem. First day of high school, he came home in floods of tears. Absolutely, please don't send me back to high school, Mum and Dad, please. And Sean and Sophie are like, oh, what is it, mate? I know none of your friends went there. What's the problem? Don't send me to high school, please. Don't send me to high school. I'm going back to junior school. What is it, mate? I know a lot more homework. I know none of your friends there. What's the problem, mate? They call me double dick. Now, so in my keynote, I say that story, and then I say, because we've always done it that way, is no reason to keep doing anything. And if you understand, like even in your brain, you can just feel that story has sort of paved the way and opened the door for that fact to come through. So like if I tell you I'm a really trustworthy person, your prefrontal cortex, this bit at the front here, very quickly shuts in and decides whether you believe me or not. But if I tell you a story that just happens to illustrate that I'm a really trustworthy person, it's actually your limbic system, the emotional part of the brain that listens to stories. It's a different part of your brain, and you can bypass people's judgment centers. Start putting stories. Ask yourself, what are the top 5 funny stories that you've got, and start shoehorning them into your content. Start putting them into your content. People say, oh, but it's too personal. This is business. I can't put personal stories in. The more personal something is, the more universal it is. Like if you speak to people's hearts and speak to people's deeper thoughts, I promise you, it makes a story more attractive and more engaging. For example, also in my change keynote, I talk about this fact that life is change. Life is change. Change is the very nature of existence. Like it's the Buddhists call it impermanence. It's only us here in the West that call it, oh, geez, here we go again. Blah, blah, blah. And so the flip side of that is when you refuse to change, you don't hold on to the past, you just lose the future. But again, I don't bombard them with that first. First, I tell them this story. Who's got kids? Hands up, who's got kids? Ladies in the room had kids. Did you have a birthing plan? Leave your hand up if your birth went exactly like your birthing plan. Like, it doesn't. I love that old joke. Like, how do you make God laugh? You tell him your plans for the future. Life never works out as you plan. My wife's a nurse. She's an ER nurse. And so her birthing plan was like, don't want any doctors, no doctors, don't want any doctors. So we were booked into like the midwife-led unit with like the birthing pool, and we had like, those electric candles so the gas wouldn't explode and all that sort of thing. And we had enough food to last 3 days and enough Enya to last a week. Because my wife just loves Enya and I fucking hate Enya. But, I'm not an idiot. You're like, let's bring those 30 Enya CDs, my darling. And so we got to the hospital, and sadly for my wife, undiagnosed breech baby. So the baby was the right way up instead of upside down. So within 20 minutes, that was diagnosed, and within an hour of getting to the hospital, we're expecting to go down this route in the birthing pool, and she'd done the meditation for birthing, all that sort of thing. We're in the operating room, and the surgeon is about to open my wife up for an emergency Caesar. Now, I think the anaesthetist could tell that my wife was a bit upset by this. And he leaned down and whispered into her and said, Mrs. Wilson, would you like me to put the radio on? Would you like some music during the birth? And my wife looked up at me with this earnest look on her face and just said, wouldn't it be a sign if Enya came on the radio? And again, I'm not an idiot. I was like, yes, darling, it would. This song, at this point in the song, is what came out of the stereo. My wife was shaking with laughter. She's an ER nurse, so she has a very dark sense of humour. She's like, tick, 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 tick. And the poor anaesthetist thought she was crying, so he's like frantically trying to turn the stupid thing off, and he ripped it out of the wall and everything. And because we realised, the real plan, we could have gone down this route. Our plans were this way. We're going down this way. But our real plan was to get one of these little guys. And there's my son when he was about, 30 seconds old, and I just cut his cord, and they'd wrapped him up. And so then after I've told that story, then I say, the reason I tell you this story is for you to understand that life is change. And when you refuse to change, you don't hold on to the past, you just lose the future. This is the point that I want you to know. You can tell absolutely any story you want, as long as afterwards, in that magic moment, see that magic moment? What? Is just that making you laugh? Oh, very good. Unexpected laughter. Very good. So in that magic moment, just after you've told a really funny story, I don't want to, pull it's because we're talking about funny business, but that's a very charismatic moment. And I could have almost told you anything at the end of that. So you have to get these phrases. I tell you this story because ... The story is a perfect illustration of ... The lesson we can all learn from this is ... The story reminds us all to ... Make up your own. In that magic moment, after you've just made a whole group of people laugh, I mean, as long as it doesn't make sense, I can't tell you that story about the, and then talk about this is why we should never go to war. It just doesn't make sense. It's got to make sense. Not such a benign violation there. All right, no problem. The thing has to make sense, but just understand the power of getting stories. So ask your friends, ask your family when you go home, because when you tell a story, you tell all the time. If you tell a story you've told 50 times over, your shoulders relax, you smile bigger, your eyes sparkle, you know where all the punchlines are. Find stories that you've told many times before and put them into your content, put them into your speaking, put them into your presentations. Because that double-dick story that I told you before, I've used that in 3 separate keynotes. the one like my change keynote, I use it the way I told you. I have a sales keynote where I talk, when internal warning bells are going off, take time out to listen to them. Like Sean's internal warning bells. Sean's instincts were telling him, do not call your kid Richard Richards, but he didn't listen to them. In my leadership keynote, I talk about when any decision will have long-term consequences, take time to really think it through. And today, I use it to illustrate you can use any story as long as you explain why you told it. What are the top 5 funny stories you tell again and again and again? Start with those stories. You can start using these tomorrow in your business to stand out. Round up your stories, but don't stop there. Don't stop there. What are the top 5 funny stories in your industry? What are the top 5 funny stories about your message? Where do you find those? Professor Google. Funny your industry stories. Funny your topic stories. If you're talking about cybersecurity, search for funny cybersecurity stories. Dumbest your industry stories. Nothing like, if you're trying to get people to be more secure in cybersecurity, find some stories of really dumb people who haven't done it and the impact that's had on them. Dumbest sector you are trying to sell to stories. Well, this is one I use all the time. Sector whose event you are speaking at, epic fail. Like I do a fair bit of banking conferences back home in Australia because, like, with the change speech, because there's all the influence of technology and disruptive business models and all that sort of thing, and there's also regulation on the banking industry, so they're always under a lot of pressure from change. And so I found this story that a mate of mine works for a bank, top 5 bank. Now, because it's a bit of an epic fail, I probably shouldn't tell you who they are. It probably wouldn't really be fair for me to tell you who it was, but. Now, this mate of mine works for HSBC over in the UK, and they were sending an email blast out to their top 5,000 wealthiest customers in the UK. So you can imagine the sort of people, the sort of wealth that is, like the top 5,000 wealthiest people with HSBC Bank. And sometimes you send an email in HTML and it turns up looking absolutely nothing like you sent it, just because the HTML goes a bit funny. And so he set up this Gmail account just to make himself laugh. He called it rich.bastard@gmail.com. And you know what happened? The top 5,000 wealthiest clients of HSBC in the UK got an email that started, "Dear Rich Bastard." And the funniest thing was they had complaints from 3 people that they weren't on the list and didn't get the email. "Dear sir, I wish to complain that I am not considered a rich bastard by your bank." So round up stories of failure in your industry or industries you're trying to sell to and weave those into your content. So top 5 funny stories about your message. Top 5 funny stories about your life. Top 5 funny stories about anything. I promise you can just start weaving those in. All right. I'll finish up on this, the awesome added bonus to constantly telling funny stories. But before I do, are there any questions? Are there any questions for me? Oh.
It works. We're getting better.
Incomplete.
Thank you so much. This is great. You do some Googling for stories, and some of that was like failure stories, epic fail. What other kinds of stories are funny? If you're trying to think laterally about it like that.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
What kinds of stories are funny? Epic fail stories, they're funny.
I mean, goes the whole spectrum, but I think, particularly in a business sense, if you're trying to influence people to take a certain action, if you can find funny stories of epic fails where people have done the opposite or neglected to do what you're trying to persuade people to do, that's a brilliant way to incorporate that into your business content.
Other hands. All right, here we go.
What advice would you give somebody that has more of a digital marketing focused boss on how to pitch these ideas internally around getting aggressive, especially if it's like a regulated industry like finance? Or
Easy. Tell him, use the power of stories to show him examples of people who do that and do it well, and find epic fails of people who don't and who've just stuck to traditional marketing for the last 20 years and how their profits have just gone like airline safety videos. Yeah, like, just find stories of people who have incorporated funny, like, the New Zealand Airlines ones they made from about The Hobbit. And did you see those ones that were at the the New Zealand airline safety videos were all taken straight from The Hobbit, all characters in The Hobbit and that sort of thing. And like find stories. Well, like just sort of go back to what I said before. Whatever you're trying to influence someone to do, find stories, like positive stories of people who've done that well, and epic fails of people who haven't done that well. Does that make sense?
Question?
One more?
You ready?
Right now I'm working with a client who's an Australian entrepreneur, and he's looking to expand what he's been doing in Australia over to the US.
Okay.
Are there differences that you've noticed in how humor works, in Australia versus the US versus other countries? And what advice do you have, if any?
No, I think because we grew up on American TV, since I was a kid, all American TV, now like our -- comedy is Big Bang Theory, and that's, so I think we also get a fair bit of British stuff as well. I think both societies are very literate. I think it's, I forget who was talking about it before. I think it was Peter this morning talking about it's more about niching it down and understanding your niche than it is about like translations, like the bit I'm going to finish on in a second, the story I'm going to finish on in a second. I had to work out what the translations were for doing it over here and that sort of thing. So you do have to do a little bit of that. Like we call it a windscreen, you guys call it a windshield and that sort of thing. You have to work out that sort of stuff. Otherwise, people are too busy trying to translate and they don't have time to solve the puzzle and get the joke. But I think the senses of humour are very similar, to be honest. Okay? All right, I better go. The awesome added bonus to constantly telling funny stories. I've got a book series back in Australia called What I Wish I Knew, where I ask people if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? And I've done a dozen of these over there now, and I've interviewed over 1,000 incredible people and asked them like how to do life well, how to do business well, but how to do life well, like cancer survivors, depression survivors, World War II survivors, 9/11 survivors. And just ask them how to do life well, how to get to the end of your days and be sitting there on that back porch holding hands with someone you love and just going, you know what? I gave that a damn good crack. I really did that well. I'm pretty pleased with how I handled that. When you ask that many people about how to do that, how to get to the end of your days and say, I handled life well, the key to it is this. It's what everyone says. Fear less. And you know what everyone says the key to that is? Laugh more. Fear less. Everyone says, if you laugh about it on your 80th birthday, start laughing about it now. And that's the thing about deliberately walking through life, asking yourself, what's funny about this? What's funny about this? What's funny about this? Having that mindset to be always looking for the humour. Like psychologists have proven that actually gives you a sense of control over calamities if you can take the mickey out of it, you can take the piss out of it. Keep looking for laughter. Like laughter is fantastic at releasing wonderful endorphins and diffusing potentially stressful situations. Like road rage. Road rage, for example. You guys love a bit of road rage, has to be said. Australians don't go in for it that much. Like, Australians don't really go in for the road rage that much. But you guys absolutely love a bit of road rage. And this friend of mine, he actually lives in San Francisco. He's originally from Arkansas, so he's quite down home. He's like, hey, don't go changing, love you like a brother, all that sort of thing. But you put 2 tons of machinery around him, and he just pops a handful of the angry pills and just goes absolutely mad. His girlfriend, Saskia is one of these people who, everyone knows at least one person like Saskia. He's right into the crystals, aromatherapy, dolphins, tarot, astrology. No nice way to say it. Hairy person. All right? But Saskia tries these new age anger techniques on this mate of mine to try and centre him and calm him down. He'll be going mad in the car and she'll be like, honey, Jeremy, picture yourself at home with a chamomile tea. Darling, your anger only hurts you. Which drives him mad. But he has discovered this one anger technique, and I'll finish up on it today because it's using humour. If you're getting stressed in the car, you're going mad in the car, you don't have to disperse your energy to Mother Universe or, hold it all inside and use it as fuel for the day, all that sort of stuff. You can go nuts. You can abuse whoever you want. But you have to do it using old Broadway show tunes. Because there's only so angry you can get when you're in the car by yourself singing, "There's no dickhead like you, dickhead like no dickhead I know." And he demonstrated, we were driving along here about a year ago when I was in San Francisco for the first time, like down the other end of Geary Street. And this guy in a Jeep Cherokee cut us off. And he's like one of those typical inner city buys the Jeep Cherokee so they can successfully navigate those treacherous leafy avenues of Walnut Creek. Oh, love it, love it, love it. Simply murderous pothole in Lower Pumpernickel Mews. Wait, this guy cut us off. I thought this mate of mine was going to go mad, but he's just calmly got out of the car, looked across at me, and just said, "West Side Story." And he's gone at the bloke in the Jeep like this, I swear. Middle of Geary Street, middle of the day, like this, just gone. "You make me sick in your SUV, dressed like a dick in your SUV, Timberland shirt in your SUV, but don't get no dirt on your SUV." I thought to myself, I can do that. I was practicing at home, biding my time. About 2 weeks later, driving a little boring man's Kia that I've got when I'm over here, and this guy in a Dodge Ram just jammed the brakes on in front of me, almost run up his butt. My mate thinks I'm going to go crazy, but I've been rehearsing. I just calmly get out of the car, look across at him and just say, "Sound of Music." And I start walking up this guy in the Ram, just going, "Blockheads in Buicks and losers in Lincolns, biffing and barging right in without thinking, driving like dickheads and cutting in front. Just like all Ram drivers, you are." A huge Samoan linebacker who just belt the crap out of me. Thanks very much for having me, guys. Enjoy the rest of your show. Thank you.